It's a common mistake to think one bike fit lasts a lifetime or even a decade. Regular fitting will keep you more comfortable and less likely to get injured on your bike, particularly as your body changes with age.
Joints can wear, muscles can get tighter, we lose muscle volume and muscle bulk as we age. You're just generally often dealing with stiffer people as they age.
John Dennis is internationally regarded as a top bike fitter and a physiotherapist, working with professional teams, triathletes and mere mortals. He's seeing many more over 60s.
Yeah, there are certainly people who are happier getting out and riding some miles and keeping fit, and those guys who have evolved into cyclists sometimes when they've picked it up when they've retired. Some of them have upped their miles actually after finishing work and then going into riding bikes once they get later in years but want to stay fit and be more active in general.
Yeah, that's the new golf, isn't it?
It is. People have given up the golf and have ended up on bikes.
But this video was hard for John to make because each bike fit is tailored to each individual. And by this age, each of us have our own unique set of limitations, injuries and body quirks. So it is very hard for John to generalise. One size absolutely does not fit all. So this is not a 3 things you must do video. If you see one of those, it'll be too generic to be valuable. Think of this as a prompt for you to check your own position on your bike and perhaps seek advice if you feel it's not quite right.
Let's get you up on there.
John will deliberately put me into an extreme position to emphasise the issues older athletes could encounter, starting with cranks that are now too long.
So obviously to get over that position there at 12 o'clock, your hip's going to close off more.
Yeah.
Your knee's going to have to flex further to get over this top of this bell curve almost. And if your knees and hips are
very tight,
you're getting tighter angles. So especially if you're riding lower on this front end here,
God, yeah.
You see how close that's going to have to go. If you've got a bit of a degenerative hip, or you don't have great mobility either rotationally in here, which is often, will happen as we get older, or you just end up with a tight hip in general. It doesn't need to be worn out, it just could be tight. We look at people on the bed and they just come up to 90 degrees even. I mean, you're obviously flexed well, but beyond 90 there, you don't have the degrees of freedom up here, then your hip is going to take the pass, at least with this, and it's going to kick out here.
Yeah.
So you see them out on the road, the knees are up and chopping up here, then obviously the knock-on effect is that your knees sort of getting some lateral forces through it. You're applying force on downstroke, your knee then has to chase in to then follow your foot down to the bottom of the pedal stroke.
Okay.
So
I see.
You end up doing this like circling pattern. So you basically end up doing that sort of thing, which doesn't do a great deal of stuff for this. I mean, obviously you can do, and we will give people off the bike exercise in terms of, right, okay, let's at least try and optimise the mobility that you've got through here. But obviously from a fixed perspective, one thing that we will do is then look and see what we can do from a crank length perspective.
Right.
And normally, dropping a crank length 2.5 millimetres is probably not worth the expense. Even sort of making a measurable change is going to be very slight. It's usually at least 5 mil that we would tell people to drop by, just to get them to sort of, for us to at least get some measurable change and give them a bit more open hip angle here.
So if your knee is tracking poorly or your hip angle limited, crank length is one consideration. I shortened mine a few years ago and it sorted my knee pain. Anyone can set themselves up as a bike fitter, so finding a good one can be a challenge. Word of mouth is useful, and John suggests looking at the International Bike Fitting Institute website, at least as a starting point. Bike fit technology, like Retool, is not everything.
The system itself doesn't tell you how to fit. It comes down to the experience and the knowledge of the rider and how to interpret and apply it to the individual. There are some good fitters out there that, you can get a good overview just by eyeballing someone's position, and you can kind of make some general and some gross changes. Obviously, it's difficult to pick up on asymmetries and quantifying where someone might have a tight hip or they shift off to one side of the bike because of some physical limitations. Again, if we've got the capacity to...
Hand position, the bar height, stem length and hood position make a huge difference to a good fitting.
It's almost just, again, coming out of that more extreme rotated positions, so your hands may come up or come in a little bit shorter. So again, we were coming up at least about 20 mil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 110 mil stem. So we came into 100, we come up. So there. Getting rider feedback as well. So, people can have a preference in terms of what they want the feel to be here. So, how much weight do you have on your hands? And it's being able to adjust something and say, okay, do you prefer that or do you prefer that?
But the best value bike fit is the one you have before you buy a bike, to establish the brand and frame size that suits you best, particularly now so many handlebars come with integrated stems.
Knowing what that contact point on the front end needs to be and almost coming up with the prescription, the client would then go away. They can either double check with us what that bike is if they speak to a dealer or so on, and then come back in with the bike, and then we'll dial them in and really sort of tailor it to the rider.
Which of course is why a video can't replace a bike fit, but it can give you some signs to watch for and decide whether you need to update yours. This is just one of a host of older athlete videos in this series, from cardiology to diet to strength to mental approach. You can find those videos in this playlist and some adventure cycling here, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.